This is From Courtroom to Carline, the podcast where we discuss life as a lawyer and a parent.
I'm Jenna.
And I'm Rick.
Your hosts and partners both in the courtroom and in parenting.
Join us as we navigate the fascinating worlds of law and family life.
Now, this is not legal advice, but in every episode, From Courtroom to Carline is a delightful blend of legal insight and parenting hilarity.
Get ready for a roller coaster ride where law meets love and where the gavel meets the car line.
All right, welcome to another episode of From Courtroom to Carline, a legal parenting podcast. I have my friend and attorney, Lee Fairchild, on. Good morning, Lee.
Morning. How are you?
Good. So, Lee, where are you currently working?
I work in Ocala, Florida, at Sparrow Fairchild.
All right, so I'm going to give a little background story of how Lee and I first met. So, my first job as a lawyer was at the Brevard Public Defender's office. And as I started, most of the attorneys that started in misdemeanor were starting to move up, and new misdemeanor attorneys were starting with me, Lee being one of them. There was two other phenomenal attorneys, Sarah and Jen, that also worked with us. But I remember probably one of your first days, you had come in to my office, sat down, and just started chatting with me. I am not as, I would say, outgoing as Lee was. So at first I'm like, who is this girl coming into my office? But you were so friendly, so chatty, phenomenal attorney. And from there it kind of started, our friendship. And then you were so eager to do trials, and obviously so was I. But I almost felt like you were like stepping on my trial territory. But once we started doing trials, one thing I remember about you, Lee, is that you would say things in closing argument that I didn't always think I could get away with saying. And then I'd hear you say something and I'd look to the state to see if they were going to object, and they let you say it. And just overall, I'm so glad that I got to know you as a friend, as an attorney, just such an all-around great person. So I'm so glad that we're able to have you on today.
Me too. It was a good time.
Yes. So tell our listeners how you made the transition and what that journey has looked like for, where you are now, because I know that you were with another attorney prior to having your own firm, but kind of tell us that journey.
So like any good story, I was fired while I quit by the elected in office that got rid of pretty much every strong woman that did their job. So I don't think that's very surprising at all. So after about 6.5 years with the public defender's office, I was being punished because they had active COVID in the courtroom, and I brought up to the judge's attention, and he made an active COVID patient take his mask off during our hearing. And that was against the admin order. And I said that couldn't happen. And he tried to not take the plea, and it all erupted in some bureaucratic hell. And Mr. Tredis didn't like that. And so they tried to abandon me in Titusville while my mother was dying of cancer. And so I chose to quit, and I wasn't going to give any notice. But when I got my lovely punishment from Mr. Perillo, he told me I had to tell him or he would. So I gave him notice, and I said he's going to fire me when I give him notice, and he promised me he was a good guy, and he wouldn't, and he did. So that's why I went into private practice.
And so now I know you're with your own firm, and, obviously devastating to hear that the PD's lost a good attorney, but obviously you're doing well now. But before you went to the practice that you're with, who did you start with? I know it was a Ocala law firm.
Law firm Ocala, individual that was a business individual that had never really practiced law, had built a large, very well marketed law firm during COVID, but had some issues with litigating the cases due to experience.
So I will say I remember seeing some things pop up when you were working with that firm. One of them being, I think it was the owner's Jeep it was very clean, but it said lawfirmocala.com, I think. But I remember him having that, and so I made Rick get a wrap on his car that he'll tell you about what happened, how we ended up with that.
Yes, so the wrap is now about 7 years old, I want to say. So I think I got the wrap on soon after I opened the practice, so The wrap is 7 years old. doesn't look like it first looked like back when I first put it on, and that's partly my fault. The guy told me that it lasts 5 years. So, and obviously I've aged. The face that's on the car I think was right after Ricky was born. So one child. Now we've got three. So I look much different. Definitely more gray in the beard than that picture that's on my car. But I will say, it's kind of the car is very reliable, and I've never been the one to be too concerned with what my car looks like on the outside. So I almost forget that my face is on the car until a deputy or a bailiff that I see in court, he'll bust my balls about it, and because and even the judges too, because they'll see me driving away from the courthouse, and I always get a comment from the judges just because it's not the norm, and so, there's been times where I've wanted to take it off, but, I just got to stick to, hey, that's me. I got to be proud of myself. It is marketing. It's cheaper than a billboard that I tell a lot of people. So I'm going to keep it on there.
Did you learn a lot about marketing when you were with that attorney?
I did. I learned a little bit about marketing. We're in a very local area that your name makes a big difference. So I think that we were kind of very poorly marketed by having just law firm Ocala. And that was for a resale value for what he wanted, which was eventually to sell the thing and make it like a Morgan & Morgan and make money off of it. So I don't think that fortunately helped me make a name. I made a name despite it. So people constantly were looking for me when I left. So then putting my name on the sign actually increased. And it also made consultations a lot easier because you're getting name recognition from actual client referrals, which is far easier to get new clients from than trying to sell them on, an attempt at freedom or to fight for their family, whatever that might be.
And how did you make the decision, to change from that firm to going and, owning the practice with your partner now?
I needed coverage and help at the firm, and my boss was unable or unwilling to do that. He did buy a $125,000 car the week before, and I asked if we could merge with this firm, and he said he did not want to. And so he and his $125,000 firm, our car stayed with that firm, and I left and made a partnership with Mr. Sparrow.
And how has that been going for you now?
It's very nice to have an equal partner, which was something that I had never had prior, that actually shares in all the liabilities, expenses, and work, and has somebody that you can actually bounce ideas off of. Unlike prior, where I was in a RICO trial in a case that I made no money on, that my employer took, I believe, less than $10,000 for, and went on vacation during a 5-day trial with 4 co-defendants. So I really do like that I don't have a partner, let alone an employer, that would leave his client high and dry while that occurred.
That's definitely rough. Obviously, we know that there's a lot that goes into trials. They're time intensive. So I'm glad that it sounds...
in the middle of it, had to drink tea the whole trial, got a not guilty. The offer was a year, was denied by the judge, who is married to the lead prosecutor at the state attorney's office. And he was able to walk free, even though after she did ask the one co-defendant. I don't know why they didn't find the other people guilty too at his sentencing.
Wow. Well, I want to say I'm surprised about the not guilty, but I'm not. Like I said, you've pulled out some amazing not guilties during our time together. So I can only imagine the growth and the not guilties that you've had since then. So congrats on that one.
Thank you.
Lee, are there any memorable trials that you've had with Jenna that you could share with our listeners? I think she's told me one or two, but I've never asked you directly. So are there any that you specifically remember that you might be able to enlighten me on?
We had a couple. I had taken over your docket, so there was like a transition of cases, but I don't remember what we tried together because there was kind of a blur in the beginning. I know some of them. I remember one, there was a conflict issue because you had represented the alleged batterer multiple times, and then I had the alleged victim now as batterer multiple times, and so that was a known issue. I mean, I was lucky enough to get Jenna's docket with Judge Clark, who was a great mentor to me and an amazing judge, and get moved from my isolation camp in Titusville as punishment for being new, only because a judge punched a public defender in the face. So thank God for Andrew taking that punch to the face, or I'd still be commuting an hour.
When I left the public defender's office in Brevard and interviewed at the public defender's office in Pinellas, that was one of the questions that had come up was, what was my thought on the tussle in the courtroom between, the judge and the public defender. And I felt so on the spot. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say at this point. But just looking back now, it definitely made headlines for sure.
Oh, I had it framed at my house, the newspaper article, because that's the only reason I was hired, is because he got punched in the face at Lee. And then there was a shift around of everyone. I think they threw Sarah in there because they were like, they figured the military, like the military.
Yeah.
And there was audio of that interaction, wasn't there? I don't think there was video, but wasn't there audio?
There was audio.
There's of them running back to the chambers to fight. And then there's the audio from there, I believe. And then obviously now John's just an attorney like the rest of us. So. Which really just tells everyone you should become a judge, because if you're punished, you'll only lose that, not your bar card. That's really what I learned from that experience.
Yeah, it was definitely, something, because I was a, newer attorney, just something that I didn't think I was ever going to experience as an attorney, but, here we are. Lee, changing gears just a little bit, I want to touch on, what you do and what your hobby is. You're very big into horses, and, tell our listeners how you got into riding.
Well, I rode as a child, and then I took off about a decade. When I sold my last horse when I was 17, I was an eventer, 3-day eventing, which is the 3 phases: dressage, stadium jumping, and cross country. And then I got back in as an attorney. We lived on our original farm, my childhood farm. And then I got pretty prevalent in the sport and ended up moving to Ocala during my firing/quitting/ we just agreed to leave each other alone moment. And at that point, we wanted to move to Ocala to be closer to that and closer to my mother's doctors, and which were at UF and at Moffitt. And I've been here ever since and rode up the levels, rode to a 2-star level, which the highest is a 5-star level for professionals. 3-star level is what you see at the Olympics. And rode to the preliminary level for eventing and brought up a couple horses, and that's what we do. And now we have a breeding farm, and we have sport horses. I still event. I was all over Vermont and New York this summer. Was able to travel because I had a partner that would cover court, which was a new and fun thing to have. The ability to take a break for maybe a moment. So that's how I ended up in the sport. So I do ride at a higher upper level, is what they call it, as well as work full time. And so that's what I've been doing. I do have a lot of clients. It overlaps. I ended up in a lot of stable owners, liens, and every kind of breach of contract. That's how I got into civil a little bit. And most of the horse people call me if they're going to get divorced.
So our son recently did a new summer camp this summer. And one of the options was horse camp. And so he got to, ride a horse and see what that was all about. And he absolutely loved it. We had to go to the library and get lots of books on horses. But it seems like, he wants to do that. But I will say it's a bit pricey, which I'm sure you understand.
Yeah, I don't recommend it unless you want to spend lots of money. So they always say a meth addiction's like very much cheaper. So.
Do you think that, riding horses and doing equestrian has been a good outlet for you and taking a break from, the daily grind of, criminal law?
I like it, but I'm a pretty high energy human being that's booked every 3-minute intervals. So that's the way I live my life. So it would be unsurprising that where I find my peace is another very high energy work. Same as the job, right?
Yes. Lee, what is something or a piece of advice that you would give to a newer attorney starting out?
What would I tell a new person starting out? I would say go to the government and put your time in. And if it feels like it's a prison, then you're getting your time. That's like part of my thought process would be. If you don't like who you're working for, then that would be a good thing. But you should definitely, cut your teeth in the government level. I think being a PD gave us a lot more access to mentorship. I felt where the women that we worked for there were great, and some of the supervisors that we had. If I could do it over, I would change nothing because of the people I met, the relationship with you and Sarah and Jennifer, and being around some of the most amazing female litigators that really ran that office. And we were lucky to be in their presence, and Jessica Travis and Colleen DeGraff. And Jesse Hicks. But I would say that if you could find an office that is active like that, that can train you and teach you and help, and even though it's hard and even though you learn by failure, that's what you should do and put your time. That makes you the better attorney, because everything else is fake it till you make it. And if you don't do that, you never will.
I definitely agree. And I think that, starting, and I'm sure Rick can agree, that starting at the, public defender's office, where you just have such a huge caseload and you get to try so many cases, see so many different scenarios, it definitely helps build your resume, your experience, and get your, knowledge in the law and how to try a case.
Absolutely.
And I do remember when I first started out, I was in the Pasco County office, and it was a smaller office than Pinellas. And I almost preferred that more because we all were, we had a higher caseload, number one, but then number two, we were kind of more close-knit family. We did things, after work. Pinellas, when you got a little bit bigger of an office, it's tough for everyone to be, everyone's friend. But with the smaller office, I felt that way. And so that was very nice and refreshing, especially when, like you said, you're trying to fake it until you make it. The person next to you has been there, done that, and they know what you're going through, and you don't feel afraid to mess up when you've got people around you that genuinely care, that you do well, and you can actually have an intimate conversation with. So I did like that small office feel when I first started out.
Did Sarah ever tell you the story about how she lied to me in trial, like my third trial or second trial, and said that I was the only one that was allowed to do any of the
No. So you got stuck doing the whole trial?
Yeah, the whole trial. She goes, "Yeah, it's the office policy to do the whole trial." And she was like, "I was going to save you if you needed to. I was so hungover that I was just sitting there like, please don't.
But honestly, though, I'm sure you did great. You just, you have that personality where you can come in and you can take a case and twist it so that it needs to, fit the narrative of the client.
My first trial that you left me was like a dead dog loser that I got a 30-minute not guilty on. Do you not remember that?
I am, again, it doesn't surprise me that was the outcome.
It was a sex bat that was dropped to a regular battery, and the allegations were like a grandfather and a granddaughter. It was, yeah. And I got a 30-minute not guilty against Francis, who is one of the most
Francis,
long-winded individuals I've ever met, but still wishes me a happy birthday every year.
Oh, well, that's nice. Lee, we have had such a great time talking with you, and thank you for coming on the show. I know that you've got court to jet to, but we definitely appreciate having you on. Why don't you let our listeners know where they can find you?
They can find me at Sparrow Fairchild. It's sparrowfairchild.com. And give us a call at 352-421-9261. And like I tell everyone else, let the bridges I burn guide your way.
Well, thank you so much, Lee. And that was another episode of From Courtroom to Carline, a legal parenting podcast. Stay tuned for What Happened to Florida Man.
Welcome back for this segment on What Happened to Florida Man. Again, we've got a pending case. We don't know the outcome yet. We're going to track it and reveal the ultimate outcome later on. But this is a case in Pinellas County where a gentleman was accused of pulling a 12-inch dagger-style blade on someone that was, I think, on his property. It looks like here he was upset that the gentleman was mowing his lawn too loudly, and so the person accused went into his car, pulled out a 12-inch dagger, and threatened him with the knife. So cops were called. He was arrested for aggravated assault. The key fact in this case, though, is that as all this was going on, the suspect was in a full-blown jester costume. So that just would add to the terror, in my opinion. And that's obviously one of the things you have to prove for aggravated assault, is that you put the person in fear. And if the blade wasn't enough, the full jester costume to go with it would definitely scare the daylights out of me.
Are these neighbors or random?
They appear to be neighbors because the suspect was at home, and it looks like the other individual was, again, I think, mowing his lawn. So this might be a neighbor feud.
Which we see sometimes, and they tend to progress if the neighbors, don't adhere to what the other neighbor wants.
And one of the things that I've done an injunction hearing where the neighbor had tried to get an injunction or restraining order against his other neighbor. This was in a condo complex, and and it wasn't granted. I was defending against the injunction, and what the judge said to me very surprised me. And she said, "This is probably the most common injunction that we see is between two neighbors that don't get along." And I never knew that, but apparently there's lots of neighbors duking it out in court because they don't like each other, and so very interesting. So we'll have to see what happens with this gentleman in his jester costume. So thank you again for another episode of From Courtroom to Carline, a legal parenting podcast. Stay tuned.